Okay, our first session this morning is Marketing Roadmap, Advancing Your Strategy, to be presented by Chris Bates, CEO of Agora Eversole Marketing Agency. Chris is a graduate of the University of Alabama, completing his BA in psychology with a minor in business administration at Belhaven University in 1994. He was a nonprofit executive for 10 years, and then he owned Mean Mallard, a 50-employee outdoor sporting goods retail operation for almost a decade. In 2009, Chris decided to use his career experiences to guide other business operators toward achieving their goals through his marketing agency, Agora Company. On January 1, 2020, the agency merged with the Eversole Group, bringing more than 30 years of bank marketing expertise into a combined new agency, Agora Eversole. Agora Eversole is an associate member for ICBA New Mexico, a very valued member. And we appreciate so much, Chris, you being with us today and presenting here at our conference. With that, the screen and the mic are yours.
All right. Good morning. Thank you, Jerry.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate that very much. Hope that everyone is able to see the screen here, and looking forward to having a few minutes with everyone this morning. Over here in the central time zone, it's 10 a.m., so I've had more coffee than most of you. So I wanted to give you a basic outline and overview of what we will be going over today. And to be very clear with you as well, knowing that there was going to be a vast landscape of representation today of bank sizes, scope, focus areas, and operations, part of the point of this marketing roadmap presentation is to meet you where you are. This is to outline a strategic bank marketing process for you and to help you with that process, regardless of your bank size. We have clients that are 120 million in assets, and we have several clients that are in excess of 2.5 billion. And everything in between, and this process has worked well for all of those. So that's the goal of passing this along to you today. So we'll start with this and look first at the proper steps, because in order to outline a consequential strategic marketing plan, you have to have the basic information to go from, rather than kind of the old days of the next ad rep that walked into your office and it sounded good to buy that opportunity. So we want to really do the groundwork that's necessary. We'll show you the guidelines for that. We will also briefly touch on the various marketing categories. So traditional, social, web, digital advertising. We'll run through that part pretty quickly and not spend a ton of time there, but to hit those high points so that as you look at your different elements and avenues, that you'll have a good idea of how to blend those together in this strategic marketing planning process. Then we'll dive into the actual plan, and this will kind of get into the meat of the presentation today. I'm going to actually to share with you an actual plan that's been a bit redacted to save our client's name, but that I hope is going to be very applicable for you to take into your bank. So we'll conceptually give you the tools today very interactively, and that you can utilize once the presentation is done today to gather all of your own baseline information and strategic core concepts. Take all of those and look at this sample outline plan and really be able to put something together for you that will be significant and useful for you going forward. So that's the goal of our time here today. And the access to those tools will be emailed to you. I believe that Nicole from the ICBA A&M office is going to email this to everyone. You'll be able to click on those links and have these tools as your takeaways. So that's our outline. Let's jump in a little bit here. I do want to start with something that maybe can at least wake your brain up a little bit. So take a sip of your coffee and let's look at where we go from here. So we're going to start with an overview of what it means and how you're going to be able to utilize this well, as we mentioned. So I wanted to start with a tongue twister. So take a sip of your coffee and say this with me. maybe so that if somebody else is in your office space, they kind of look at you funny. So proper prior planning promotes predictable processes and production. The bottom line there is if you don't outline your core information first, as we'll look at here in just a few minutes, you're just going to be taking a stab and a shotgun approach to your marketing planning going forward. So target market analysis, as an example, and several other pieces that we'll look at are really core to setting your goals for what your roadmap is going to look like, what your ROI is going to be, and how you're going to accomplish your goals ultimately. All right. So the next parts of this, again, I'm going to go through very quickly. And I do believe that Nicole is going to help at the office. So as we go through this, if you do have a question and want to throw that in chat, I'm glad to take that as we go. And we'll also leave just a few minutes at the end to cover questions. All right. So this one I'm going to come back to. I'm going to skip this over very quickly, but I did want to show you that we're going to look at all of the different element and campaign approaches and platforms for marketing very quickly. And we're going to circle back to this one, where you develop a strategic marketing plan, the outlines for that, how to be deliberate, and then how it's going to look for you and your bank. All right. So when we talk about the various marketing platforms and tactics, it's kind of easy for us to categorize these. And some of you may have actually been in one of the ICB A&M conferences earlier this year, and we dove pretty deep into each of these categories as we were looking at a blended marketing approach. So social media, if you're not there, you need to be. It needs to be strategic and deliberate. We'll look at that. Your web presence, your search engine optimization, your website itself, digital advertising, obviously targeted within compliance standards, and traditional marketing is still very important in some basic ways within our community reach to certain targets. Okay, so we'll fly through these a bit. Traditional marketing, these are things that you're very familiar with and been doing for years. As I mentioned a moment ago, these still reach certain target markets and are core and important. As COVID has let up a bit and our lobbies have opened back up, we've got people coming in. The branding that exists there with your drive-throughs and your collateral and any mailings that are existing, those types of things. And one of the big differentiators for all of us as community banks that separate us from the large regional and national banks is the fact that we can have that community relationship, community engagement. So your sports guide ads, at the local high school and those types of things, as digitally focused as we are as a marketing agency, we still consider those things very core to your local presence. Okay. Your social media, to give you the quick overview of this, the way that we create content for our clients is really in three buckets. Community presence is your organic content that you're putting out there on your social media. Month in and month out, when we look at client reporting on Facebook, Second Place, Instagram, even LinkedIn, and some of those, we don't get a lot of traction on Twitter for our community bank clients. But those big social media platforms, the organic stuff is really what gets the most traction. It gets the most engagement, shares, likes, so on and so forth. So that community presence element of your social media is core and important. We also want to be resourceful. We want to be informational and provide tips and those types of things so that people looking at our page or seeing our posts are getting engaging and useful information, both for business, for personal, whether it be about ag loans or student checking accounts, whatever the case may be, and whatever core areas that your bank focuses on. And then obviously we want to mix in our product and services, but these are typically the posts that get the least engagement. That is by nature, because the question here is social media is social. It's conversational. It's connectivity between you and me on electronic platforms. And I'm not really there to look at detailed information on your, on your CDs. That's not why I'm there. I'm looking to engage with you as a personality. And yes, a bank can have a personality, right? So strategically approaching your content is truly crucial. Also looking at your strategies and ads. If you're not boosting posts and running social media ads or have an agency or someone doing that for you, you need to be. People think that putting posts out there just gets seen by their local market, or maybe that it just gets seen by the people that like their page. And 6-8 years ago, that was the case. In this day and age of complicated algorithms that are changing all the time, while Facebook and Instagram and the other platforms want your money for your advertising, it is a pay-to-play platform, and your content is not going to be in front of your target audiences on a regular basis if they aren't highly engaged. And in order for them to be highly engaged, it has to be in front of them. So we're not talking massive campaigns. To give you an idea, some of our mid-sized clients in smaller rural areas, for example, we might boost posts for $10 or $20 a piece. So it's not massive amounts of money, but it is crucial to getting your content viewed. Your web design. If you do not have a highly responsive web platform that has the user interface and the user experience, UI and UX, well studied and site mapped out well, easy to find, probably a good bit of negative space for simplicity and ease of navigation, then you need to take a hard look at it. So whether an outside agency like us designs and develops your website and comes alongside a core provider for linkage to your core services, or whether you're utilizing someone internal or a core provider themselves, whatever the case may be, these are key areas that are crucial in this day and time, because a lot of times this digital advertising, this social presence, we're driving all of this back to your window to the world, and that is your website. So here's some good key element information that you want to make sure that you're covering. And we're all familiar with SEO, keeping in mind that this is organic, not paid presence, so that when people in your specific geographic areas, typically within a 10 to 20 mile radius of your branch addresses, for example, are searching for, student loans or student checking accounts or various personal loans or small business or whatever the case may be that's your bank specialty areas. If you're not coming up on page 1, ideally organically in slot 1 through 5, then you've got work to do. And you're being beaten in more ways than you realize by your competition. So search engine optimization is like building a human reputation. It's not done overnight. It takes a cumulative effect of lots of work in a lot of these key areas over a long period of time. We typically see that our community bank clients benefit very well from outsourcing all of this information and processes, just because it does require constant touch over a long period of time to increase your rankings and to keep them there. So I've done 2-hour seminars just on SEO, so lots of information there. In the digital marketing spectrum, there are so many different strategies and approaches to this, but we're all familiar with geofencing to one extent or another, even if you're not actively doing that with your bank. Behavioral targeting is a great one. For example, we had one of our South Louisiana clients that was trying to increase their first-time home buyer market penetration, and we were serving ads to folks that were searching on Zillow and Realtor.com and retargeting those behavioral patterns for their mortgage ads, as an example. Great ways to get your bank name and certain key products out there in compliant ways. So doing that through PPC text ads, through domain retargeting, so that just like we're all familiar with Amazon, when you search for something and a couple of days later you're on a weather app on your phone, that thing you searched for popped up here. Well, there's a lot of these search targeting and retargeting tactics within the digital marketing spectrum that we find as highly effective. And they're obviously highly measurable as part of your blended marketing strategy. If you're not swimming in this pool yet, you need to be. You can walk before you run, but engaging with someone that really knows what they're doing in this and can help you, or learning these strategies yourself to implement this needs to be a growing and significant part of your marketing strategy. Okay, so now we've circled back to this, and we're going to kind of get into the meat of the planning process here. So looking at this, you want to first define your goals well. It's very difficult to jump on the track and run the race if you don't really know what time you're trying to beat or what your goals are, correct? And we all know that, but taking a pause to do an up-to-date SWOT analysis, and I'm going to give you a tool to help you with this here shortly, and to outline your positioning, your why, your messaging. A lot of times in our arena, we call it your superpower, because I've got a little secret for you about banks. We all deal with green money, right? And so what are your true differentiators? Maybe you specialize in ag. Maybe it's certain key personal loan, categories. Most of our clients these days seem to be cash heavy in this stage of kind of moving through pandemic times and all of that, and are focusing on loans in their marketing. So whatever that is, but what is your differentiator, not only from the large banks, but also from your local competitors? So to define that on the front end is really key. And then we start to mix in what we've covered for the last few minutes, which are what are those platforms and how are you going to blend those in effectively to reach your goal markets, right? And to increase your market share in certain areas to increase your superpower and use it well. Market surveys are obviously a great way to do that. Gosh, we do those. Sometimes you can get a somewhat decent response rate even from mailers and those types of things, but we've done social ad campaign market surveys that are driven to a landing page that enter folks for sweepstakes and do other types of things that are incentives for quick and easy market survey response information. That can give you great information about new geographies, new product or service targets, and what it is that you're trying to do. But again, to do this core foundational work on the front end as you develop a plan, alongside, even if your bank already has and probably has a strategic plan, to put this together and then to do it in a way like the example that I'm going to show you in just a few minutes, as to how this is marched out on a month-by-month basis and what's happening in each platform, and being very strategic about your processes so that the same messaging and why and content is being seen on your social platforms, your digital ads, your billboards, all of the above, across all of those spectrums, okay? And then being deliberate. So integrating into your plan timeframes, specific budgets. So again, it's kind of not the old days of waiting until the next ad rep walks into your office and seems to have a great deal that they're running on next month's issue or whatever the case may be. But it's being deliberate about this so that you understand who is responsible, exactly what's happening, what are the expectations, how are we reviewing it, and ultimately, how are we measuring ROI, correct? All right. So here are your work packet tools, again, that the office is going to email this over to you, and it's going to provide you with two things here that I think are going to be elemental and helpful to you, as I mentioned, regardless of your bank size, okay? So let's look first at the roadmap planning questionnaire. I'll flip over here. Okay, so we'll provide you a link to this. And this is a questionnaire process that should not take you more than 15 minutes. This is something that our agency provides as an onboarding process for new multi-service clients. But for everybody that's on the webinar today, we're going to offer this to you guys free. Once you submit it, then I'm glad to book a 30 to 45 minute session with you to go through this information, help you outline your plan and all of that. And I promise you it's with no obligation. What we would love to do for you guys as members of ICBA A&M is to be able to bite off this juicy steak and use this in an informative way that's going to help you with your efforts. Okay, so defining your geographic markets, that changes over time. That may seem like a very basic question, but for example, how close to your branch areas are you trying to get? Are you trying to break into more urban areas, and what's your strategy for that? What are your core main product and service offerings? It does amaze me how many clients we engage with in this day and time that really have a hard time listing more than one or two here, and prioritizing what their core product and service areas are for that. Then we're getting into your SWOT analysis information, your mission statement, your specialty areas. What are your superpowers? Okay, or superpower? What are your differentiators? If we're all pushing the same thing, then we're all rowing up the same stream at the same speed, and that makes it very difficult. What are those differentiators, whether it be a market, whether it be a product or service, that are going to set you apart and help you with your growth strategy? Your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. With the sample plan that I'm going to show you in a minute, threats in this day and time are far beyond just your local brick and mortar competition. We've got fintech, we've got all types of different strategies that are out there that are threatening our community banking business, right? So what are those, and how are we going to address it? Image issues. This can be anything from there was something controversial that happened locally with a board member last year. That's an image challenge, or maybe your branches haven't been updated in years and they're kind of old and stale, and that's an image issue. Or the list is going to be specific to what's happening for you in your market with your bank, but they're very real, and we want to run straight at them head on. And how do we do that? Product issues, what's coming up over the next 12 months? Are you changing core providers? Are you offering new service areas? Are you approaching or rebranding a particular product or service or category that can help you to move forward in your marketing? Okay, and defining these audiences, going through this process of looking at what platforms and media you're currently using, a little bit further into your competition. And this is going to give you the core skeleton of what we think is going to serve as the basic soil to grow this new tree out of. Okay, so again, if you want to take the time to utilize this form, send it to you. I'll provide this information back to you in full, and be glad to spend time going through it and developing what we're going to look at now, which is your blended marketing strategy. Okay, what is happening with the blended marketing strategy here, and I'll go to full screen mode, is we created the AE as Agora Eversole. So we created a faux bank brand here, but are applying this to a mid-sized community bank client of ours and their actual plan that we developed earlier in the year for them. So I want to give you insight into this and then provide it to you as a tool that you can use. So what we're doing initially is we're recapping all that core information, defining the purpose of the plan and exactly what is it that we're going to be doing with all of this information. Combining your answers with all of your SWOT analysis so that it's all on one page here. I think that as you go through this intentionally, if you haven't done this even in a couple of years, you may be surprised at your answers. And when you really look honestly and deeply into what challenges are and what your opportunities are, they're nothing like what they were 2 years ago. And as quickly as things change in this day and time, they're not going to be the same in 2 years from now. So I think this is an ongoing process, not a one-time project for you. All right. Then looking at these marketing objectives and starting to turn the lens forward here. What are the medias that we have used? What if you've done any survey processes and having that information compiled here? Your product issues and challenges, image issues, and let's have all this information in one place. Okay. Now, this gets into my favorite part, because what we start to do is take everything that we've talked about for the last little while here, and let's put this thing into a calendar, okay, and start marching it out, right? So what we do month over month in this strategic planning process is we take all of this information, we compile it together, we outline this and talk about on bite-sized monthly chunks, what issue are we going to address, okay? What does, in this example, we had a new SEO focus every month. So we're expanding content on their website, indexing that information on Google, which is 83% of the search market. You know, and what are we updating on our website? I'd love to see a show of hands of how many of us feel like our website gets stale. It sits for 3 months, 6 months, and rarely gets updated content and information. So this is one way to be, as I talked about early in this webinar, very deliberate about keeping your information fresh, well branded across these multiple platforms, okay? But as marketers, during this current month, we've got to be developing what's happening next month, next quarter, right? And looking ahead at what's going to be happening. So while this is our strategy for December, we're also looking at developing what's going to be happening January through June. What content do we need to be creating so that we are being proactive rather than reactive through this strategic planning process and walking out this marketing effort, okay? And then looking also at exactly what platforms, what vehicles are we using for our messaging in each of these campaign efforts over time, okay? So here was another one, again, continuing with their December plan, what's going to be happening June through March, you know, each of those core areas, and obviously you'll fill in your key information with each of these around your product and service and community engagement areas here, okay? Christmas time, the holidays, those types of things, it makes our social media easy to fill up, right? That may not be the case in April. We may have to dig a little deeper for what are we doing for content, those types of things. And having this deliberately outlined is a great way to look ahead at that. So then as we get into the new year, for this client, we're taking that HELOC campaign and marching that forward and looking exactly how we're doing that. So we started launching these or will launch these digital ad campaigns. I will give you a quick aside about that. In the digital ad spectrum that we talked about a little bit earlier, and some of what you may be experiencing, what we find for our bank clients is really a good mix of SEM, PPC, text ads, again on Google, and digital visual content ads, which are being placed on websites and mobile apps, et cetera, through some of those approaches that we were talking about earlier, retargeting, geofencing, behavioral, those types of things. So a good blend of those is what seems to hit some key market sectors for us, depending on the product or service that we're most trying to promote. We also have to be very intentional in that process to make sure that the landing page, either on our website or a separate landing page that we're driving that traffic back to, is of high consequence, that conversions are going to be very easy to get there with a click to call, or fill out this form for more information, or we've done free ebooks and, you know, all types of things there that that really are trying to ultimately drive those conversions. because when you get off of the traditional and onto the digital platforms, that's what's so beautiful about that, is how we can measure those well. Okay. So again, moving forward and looking at what's happening in spring here, what are we outlining? These are our new business debit campaigns, those types of things, some of our uniquenesses, and being careful here again to integrate the superpowers that we talked about. What are your differentiators? And in looking through your plan outline, where do those exist? And it helps you again to be very deliberate about it. So again, each and every month we're touching web updates, we're touching SEO focus updates. Periodically, sometimes we're continuing those digital ad campaigns, skipping forward, and then sometimes we are updating those. Maybe it's just from a content standpoint, just changing images on ads, those types of things, focusing on different keyword sets, all of that. Let me back up just a second here. But we're also making sure that we're paying attention to our, what I call the old school, traditional elements that are so much part of our brand, even your voice on hold, and posters in the lobbies and those types of things. So am I, as a consumer, experiencing the same thing that I'm seeing maybe in print, outdoor, when I come into the lobby, when I pull into the parking lot? And is it hitting me at the same thing when I'm sitting around in my pajamas eating chili at 10 o'clock at night? Is it popping up on my app? And is it that same brand messaging, okay, across all of these platforms? And how are we getting that out there? Even PR opportunities, okay, and that's, again, a whole additional discussion. But particularly, guys, as we're able to start getting out of our offices and homes and integrating with communities more and more, taking advantage of those PR opportunities, where it be supportive charities, schools, those types of things. And we all know how much that differentiates us from the large finance companies and national organizations. So marching forward here through the year, I'm not going to deliberately go month by month here, because I do want to leave a little bit of room for us to discuss some of these elements. But as you can see, it's a month over month preparation of the month and quarter ahead, and what we're going to be our key focus areas, as well as what are we implementing in the current month intentionally, how, why, and what platforms are those existing on. Okay. Going into the summer, we're being seasonally sensitive to the natural trends that we all experience in banking. I will say this, and we mentioned at the beginning of this this part of the presentation, as I showed you this plan, we all realize that this is in pencil, right? And the pandemic has taught us more than probably any other time that sometimes we have to scratch what's on paper and what was planned out for the next month or quarter, and be more reactive than proactive, as we would prefer to be. We spent an awful lot of time, particularly back in earlier 2020, quarantine initially happens. We had to put a lot of this information on pause, right? But because we had our platforms already outlined, it was easy for us to jump over and make announcements about lobbies closing, but turning to our tech for our ongoing service for you, and all of that messaging that for all of us became so key and important as we walked through quarantine and then further forward. But then what it did allow us to do as things got back on track was for us to revisit, yes, maybe the timing. Maybe we had shifted everything back a few months, but it allowed us to jump back into our plan and not be grasping at straws again, but to again become deliberate and focused on key areas of our marketing services as we began to get proactive again a bit. So, and again, going through the rest of the year here, and as I mentioned to you, we will share all of this information with you, and you will find it in your roadmap presentation piece that you'll receive by email. So again, I want to invite you guys to do this yourself or engage in a conversation with us. Again, no obligation, but go through this planning questionnaire. Use that as a tool. Use the sample marketing strategy and fit it to your bank. Whether you're a larger or smaller, it's still easy to fit it to your budget and strategies. Okay, and get our help to walk you through it, answer questions if you like, whatever the case may be. A couple of other kind of thoughts toward wrapping up here. I mentioned that many of you may already have a strategic plan, obviously, for the bank of some sort. But to have this combined information from the utilization of these tools and being able to present this to your board, okay, and to your officer groups, and it gives the opportunity to put everybody in your bank on the same page. This is what we're doing. We've got buy-in with this, and the how and the why. How are you taking the marketing ROI and the conversions? And where are your loan officers or your CSRs, and how are they going to be responsive to these efforts? And if they understand from a big picture what us as marketing people are responsible in trying to do in taking these plans and marketing forward, then they're going to be better prepared. So I say it this way: as marketers, as an agency, our job is to put butts in the seats, right? But if you cook them a crappy hamburger, it's really not much I can do about that as your marketer, right? So those of us that are on the webinar today that are sitting in that seat, and we're responsible for driving traffic to the bank and trying to create conversions, let's share this strategic plan and the whole process with enough of our team that you've got the buy-in, that everybody is understanding what we're trying to do, where it's coming from, why, and then how are we going to be immediately responsive to those conversion opportunities with potential customers, okay? That process that I just described to you over the last couple of minutes, we have seen literally transform community bank clients of ours so that it seems like maybe for the first time ever, people are more on the same page. And all you did was deliberately create the right kind of strategic marketing plan that was going to accomplish that. So ROI internally and from driving more conversions. So I'll pause there for just a moment. And again, we'll get this shared out to each of you. Nicole, I'm not sure if we have any questions through the chat at this point.
I have not seen any. Does anybody have any questions?
I do.
Great.
You knew I
Good
couldn't. Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, good to see you again.
You too. You knew I couldn't sit through this and not have
Absolutely.
questions.
Yeah.
So, you know, what you're describing sounds so awesome. But the role sometimes is like herding cats, as you know. You've got the board telling the executive leadership what they're talking about, what they're doing. You got executive leadership going out to the different business lines saying, here's what we need. Then you got the budget process, and then you get all these ideas about how we're going to meet these goals. We're going to lend more money. We don't want to deposit, whatever it is, so we need to. And then you've got the ancillary product lines, treasury management, wealth management, retail. I mean, all these other things, and everybody, what happens to me, and I'm sure this is typical of marketers out there, is I need this, you're on this project, I want this project. And so you've got this plan, and all of a sudden it's like, it's oatmeal. And so it's like, I would love to do this, and I would love to chat with you offline to see how we can kind of hopefully maybe work together. Yeah. But until then, how do you, because it's like I can't make my strategic plan until everybody else gets their goals outlined for their product line. So how do you, it's like, how do you wrangle all that together in addition to the digital and the traditional and all that other stuff that you're trying to keep up with. Help.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm glad that you said that. So what I'll go back to, I guess, is Floyd, to kind of share some experience, strength, and hope here for you, all of the above. Is that what I've seen happen, as I mentioned, is at least creating the bare bones of a strategic marketing plan, even if you have to turn around and share that uphill and it gets revised some and then passed back down. And what I've seen happen for actually a number of our clients, it's kind of like raising my kids and now grandson. Part of that process is teaching boundaries and what I will and will not accept. Okay. Yeah. So part of the pain, one of the pain points I hear you mention too is field officers, what it's here in Central Time, it's 10:45 on a Wednesday, right? And boom, we get an email and they need something for the sports guide ad at the high school playoffs that's day after tomorrow.
And that's easy. That's the easy part, right?
Yeah.
It's like, no, I need an email to let everybody know that we now have this particular thing and you weren't on the loop on that particular thing.
Yeah.
And I've got to prepare an email for 15,000. And it's like, it's those things that kind of throw you off track. It's like, and I've got this new product that we're going to be offering in 2 weeks. I mean, so and don't get me wrong, Century Bank is highly organized and we do what we do. But as a marketer, these are the things that you kind of get. I mean, that the wrench on the railroad track or whatever you want to call that. So it's.
Yeah. And in the human resources world, what HR directors are always saying is blame it on the P&P, right? I mean, Floyd, I got to let you go. Sorry, you didn't, and it's not my fault as the HR director. It's because you didn't follow policies, right? So think about this marketing plan, and I would encourage you to, in that same vein, which is, a director all of a sudden throws in and wants to do something off the cuff. And I've seen that so many times. And a number of those pain points that you're mentioning, that I'm sure pretty much everybody on the webinar here has experienced those. But again, what I've seen happening is by creating this tool, and maybe it's not in the first 6 months, Floyd, but maybe you look up 2 or 3 years from now and man, you've kind of moved all those different parties more into, yeah, I hear you. I know all of a sudden you want to do that, but it's not part of the plan. And the reason that the plan is what it is because of X. So we're not going to just throw in an ag loan ad, for over here in your county, just because you think you want to. It needs to be a part of the whole, and kind of keep referring back to this plan like a policies and procedures manual.
Right.
And I understand you want that, but we're going to stick with this plan, and here's why. So, and I think what's missing for so many folks, Floyd, is just having this core plan in place, to have as a tool and to share uphill and downhill.
Right.
So I think you'll see the positive consequence from doing that. And you're right, that may be a 2 or 3 year process, right? To really start to see buy-in from uphill and downhill into, oh, this is why we're doing it. And because it's literally turning our ship in the right direction.
Yeah.
So
and actually,
that's what I would offer.
If that could be done, man, we'd look like heroes, as the marketing department, so.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else has another question, but I have another one for you.
Here, Floyd, let me jump in here. There was one other. Let me read it real quick, and then we can come back to you to maybe close out Chris's program. From Colton, he says, other than Facebook, what is the best / most effective social media product to use for marketing?
Great. Colton, I assume you mean other platforms. Most of you probably know that Instagram is owned by Facebook. So the answer to your question is Instagram. And I don't know what it is, but and some of you guys may get some great traction with Twitter. If so, that's wonderful. My experience over these years, and our social media coordinator, that she's right on the other side of this wall and does this all day, every day, says it well. Twitter seems to be for sports, entertainment, and celebrities. And if you're not one of those, and you're not willing to engage in conversation all day long, every day, then Twitter's probably not your platform. Okay. In addition to Instagram, though, and again, because Facebook and Instagram, you can set ad campaigns, Colton, to run on both. So you can set up your Facebook ad platforms and run a boost or a brand awareness campaign or whatever the case may be, and run that on Facebook and Instagram seamlessly. Okay, so that makes it another reason why it's kind of a second place. We're all trying to get younger markets, right? We're all aware of that. We've got fintech out there. We've got cash apps and everything else that we're trying to compete against. Instagram is a great platform for doing that. A lot of our commercial bank clients, LinkedIn is important, so I might put that from a commercial perspective as a third place. Once you start to get into Snapchat and gosh, the list from there goes into about 6 or 7 other ones. It's very difficult to get banking conversion, on a lot of those. Is it good to have a presence, on some of those other platforms? Certainly. Do you need to be spending a ton of time and a ton of effort? My college sophomore daughter, I can look it up for you right now. She's got about $17 in an account, right? So how much marketing effort am I going to put, into reaching that crowd? Do we want them for the long-term relationship? Of course. Is that core to increasing revenue for the bank in this, as we sit today? Probably not. So sorry, that was kind of a long answer to a longer discussion, but Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, even seeing a little bit of activity and interest on Pinterest for very rural, banks that are kind of very community involved, that kind of thing. But hope that answers your question, Colton.
Thank you, Chris. Floyd, go ahead and jump in with your question. And I think this would be our last one before we need to take a break.
So my question is also related to social media. And that is, so, our bank has locations throughout the state. So, and you said, you hit the nail on the head when you said the organic content is probably the most popular. So, we've tried to do ambassadors in other cities, and it just doesn't get, how do you guys advise others who have several locations throughout different states to kind of get the same messaging, but get those organic pieces that seem to do so well?
Yeah. So incentive, I think is probably the short answer there, Floyd. I think an ambassador program, whether that's local branch managers or loan officers or whatever the case may be, is exactly the way to do that. But typically what I see, whether that's a small pay incentive, whether that's a, take them out to lunch once a month or whatever the case may be, but you come up with an incentive plan to do that, and then have a buy-in and kind of legitimize. I love your word, actually, is an ambassador program. I've heard them called social officers and social soldiers and all kinds of stuff, for that. But kind of have a plan there. So it's not Floyd going, hey, Chris, be sure that when you guys sponsor the American Heart Walk, that you just take a picture and send it to me, and you mention that randomly. Become deliberate about that. Hey, I need one a week, I need or 2 a week from you, whether it's birthdays, work anniversaries, community engagement, those types of things. So I need X. I need it every Wednesday, with a deadline, and put some incentive in there. And I've seen that work really well. And then champion those folks, in a way, maybe even, because honestly, some of them like it because they're the ones that are in the picture. A lot happen to be a lot of the time, if they're your ambassadors,
right?
They like that. So, and I've even seen like reward programs for all employees, you know, to like and share and those types of things, which makes your social exponential, you
Right.
know, especially the organic, you know, because Betty Sue or Bob's 40-year work anniversary gets a whole lot more traction and is just got so much more jingle to it than a mortgage product. It just does.
Yeah, I
So,
agree.
so I would find ways to incentivize and engage and then reward, not always just financially, sometimes recognition, ways to do that and really get buy-in from the field.
Good answer.
Great.
Thanks.
Thanks, Floyd. Well, Chris, thank you very much. We appreciate the fact that you've taken this time to enlighten our audience this morning. Now you folks know why Agora Eversole is one of our associate members. They do a good job for our banks, and we highly, highly recommend them.